Each and every day, enjoy the Simple Six menu at Subway, an entire made-for-you meal featuring one of 6 inch sandwiches like the Italian BMT or Black Forest ham, with any bag of chips and a 21-ounce drink, all for only $6. Subway. Eat fresh.
Warning. This podcast may contain mature language, so if you're not comfortable with that, earmuffs.
The BS Report. The BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Welcome to the BS Report, taping this on a Tuesday afternoon. We are running it Wednesday. On the line, the most famous screenwriter of all time, the most tortured Knicks fan of all time, and one of my favorite writers of all time, William Goldman. How are you?
I am flattered by that. What can I tell you? Thank you.
Let's talk, and we'll save the Knicks for last.
Okay.
Philip Seymour Hoffman, one of the greats, passed away over the weekend, age 46. What were your thoughts?
Well, I didn't know him, but I never can remember being as rocked by an actor dying, because I had just seen him in Death of a Salesman, and he was so brilliant, and he was 6?
Yeah, 46.
And he was at the peak of his powers, and I kept thinking, my God, he had 30 years of thrilling us, and that's all gone now. You know, and Gandolfini, who was wonderful, died at 51, but I think part of that was the way he did not look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Yeah. And I think that did not help his survival, but Hoffman was just heartbreaking. I mean, my God, he was so gifted and so brilliant, and he did so many wonderful movies, and all of a sudden, what we'll never know, or I don't think we know yet, is was that suicide or just a stupid drug overdose?
I think it's pretty clear that it seems like he had a pretty severe drug problem that finally caught up with him. But I think it seems like he'd fallen off the wagon to some degree.
It's so awful because you never heard anything bad about him. Everybody who met him or knew him, everybody gushed about what a brilliant actor he was, and God knows he was. And it's just heartbreaking. I mean, I'd like to be coherent, but I can't be. I mean, it's just, I'd seen him for years, 20 years on Broadway and all this stuff in the West, in the movies, and it's just, what can I tell you? It's terrible, terrible, terrible.
One of the ways you love to measure actors is seeing them on stage. And everybody said he was amazing in Death of the Salesman.
He was.
Death of a Salesman. Where did that rank? Because you always said, what was your number one stage performance? Wasn't it Brando?
Brando in Streetcar when I was 16, I think.
Right. So where did he rank in that on that list for you?
Well, Brando, you got to understand. I was younger, and no one had ever been like Brando before. And to see him, this was before he became a film star and a legend and all that. Just this guy walking around on the theater, and you're looking at him, and it was so startling. I never saw anything quite like Brando, and I never will again. This was, if you had said to me, what are the best performances you'd ever seen, certainly Hoffman's up there. He's one of those guys. I mean, I saw him in Long Day's Journey. It's very hard. It's very hard to be a good actor, and to be a brilliant actor is so rare. And when you have one, and he's a New York kid, and he walks around here and, got the lovely girlfriend and 3 kids, and you think, oh my God, what a great life he must be leading. And then all of a sudden it was shit.
Right. Chris Connolly was on my podcast on Monday, and he made the point that one of the things he loved about Hoffman was he seemed like he came out of a different generation. Like you easily could have imagined him coming up in the 70s with Pacino and John Cazale, all these different people. There's really not a lot of guys like that now, right?
No.
Like who else would you put in that class?
I wouldn't put anybody. If we had been sitting down and he was alive and all that shit, and we were just having a drink and having a talk about who's the greatest American actor, I would say, well, I think you got to think Hoffman. I mean, Pacino was wonderful, and there were others, but De Niro's done wonderful stuff, blah, blah, blah. But I don't think there's anybody that's quite like Hoffman. He was an unusual, he was not tall, and he was not beautiful, and he was this figure. What I'll never forget, and this won't make any sense, when Willie Loman comes on stage for the first time in the play, he was staged to be walking across the stage going to his house. And I'll never forget the walk. It was like, it was just, you could sense all the pain.
Right.
And that's one of the abilities that he had. And he was a great actor. There are not many of them, Bill. I mean, when you find someone, I was talking at lunch, saw a movie called Gravity, which is swell.
Yep.
And there's a great performance in it by Sandra Bullock. And if she won the Oscars, I would not be remotely upset. And Sandra Bullock is right now, this is an odd thing to say, probably the most commercial star in the world. Mm. And you wouldn't have thought that 15 years ago, but she's done terrific movies, and people like her. People like to go see her. It's an odd thing when these things happen. And actors lead very strange lives because it never lasts, and stuff happens to them. There can be bad things. It's a really weird world. Performers are strange people. It's very hard what they do, and most of them are in terrible pain. But because we love them and we love to see them, we don't want to know that. So we say, "Oh, I saw Sandra Bullock on the street today. She seemed great," or whatever,
Right.
But it's a tricky thing being especially a film star.
Do you think it's weird? I think everybody agreed. So Hoffman dies, and I think the outpouring was of somebody that was the highest caliber A-list. Like, you read the internet, every major movie person had to weigh in, and just people were really upset about it. And it was strange to me that nobody ever went out and said at the time that he was that good. It was almost like we almost didn't realize it until he got and taken away.
There is that. I don't know how big this story is in Los Angeles or Chicago, but in New York, because he's a local kid, or was, it's just huge in all the papers and on television. Mm. And I think no one thought Hoffman was going to die.
Right.
I mean, we didn't know we knew he was a sensational talent, but we didn't know. We thought, well, yeah, that's good. That was terrific. I love what he did in this play and that play, but he'll try that and he'll do the other thing. And then all of a sudden it's all taken away.
Yeah, he was almost like one of those athletes that is just cranking out big seasons year after year, but you don't really kind of realize that the breadth of the career,
No, that's true. I mean, I was talking with some people. LeBron was in town, and I hate him so much. He's so great. And you look at him. I only hate him because he didn't come to New York.
I know. He spurned you.
I know he did spurn me. But you look at him and you see him on the greatest players. It's probably too soon to say where LeBron rates, but he's up there. But the greatest players I ever saw were Wilt and Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
And they were freak talents, and I think LeBron may be one. And when you have one of those people, or a Hoffman, when you have somebody who's really greatly gifted, they don't come along often. And you better treasure them while they're here, because there's no law that says, something awful isn't going to happen.
And the other one we lost a couple years ago, Heath Ledger. Different points of their career. Heath Ledger was embarking on this whole career. I don't think he'd hit his prime yet.
No, I agree. He was terrific, but I don't think he hit his prime. And I think.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I don't think anybody thought Hoffman was going to get much better, because you couldn't get much better. I don't know what parts he could have played next. I don't know what his ambition was. Obviously, he was not a happy camper.
Yeah.
And we didn't know that. he had the 3 kids and the lady he'd been with for 15 years, and he lived in the city. But you never read about Phil Hoffman being drunk in a bar or this or that. He was just this actor who acted a great deal in the theater, thank God. And, it's Phil Hoffman again. Let's go see him. It's that kind of thing.
Right. And I think what would have been interesting with his career the next 15 years was, as he aged, the roles that he was taking, it would have been this whole second incarnation as
I would have
older character actor, all that stuff.
I would have loved to have seen what parts he picked. I mean, what did he decide to do next? It's heartbreaking that he's gone, because when in any world, whether it's sports or theater or movies, when a great talent comes along, we're blessed, because they don't come along often. And you better treasure them, because shit happens.
So who is the best actor alive right now? Daniel Day-Lewis?
He's pretty good. I was going to say Olivier. I don't know. It's like...
Oh, yeah. Is Olivier still alive, isn't he?
No, he's not.
Oh, no, he's not. Okay.
But he's the greatest actor I ever saw.
Yeah. No, I meant alive, living right now.
I don't know who you'd say. I don't know. I mean, I don't think Pacino's a wonderful... I don't know. It's hard. I wouldn't know. I can't... If I can think of one, I'll let you know. It's not a question I was ever asked before.
Where do you stand on the Tom Hanks thing?
Well, I saw him in his Broadway show, and he was really swell. You're always terrified when a movie star comes to New York, because the theater is so different. And you don't know, are they going to make an ass of themselves? Are they going to be wonderful? And Tom Hanks in the play was swell. He was really swell. I know some people who were around it. It was a very happy group of people who were with him, and he was terrific. And I thought, Jesus Christ, what I came out of the theater thinking, Tom Hanks can really fucking act. Nice. You never know that in the movies. You don't know how much stuff they have around them to make that work. I mean, are they tall or short? Do they look like themselves? I don't know. It's different when they come to New York, or when they do theater.
What about Leo?
Oh, he's a wonderful actor, but I don't know. I mean, he's wonderful. I would never... when he comes to New York, I'll always go see him, and I always go see his movies. You don't know. It's one of those things where, I mean, the part that he played, that Hoffman played, Willie Loman in Death of a Salesman, the Arthur Miller play, it's arguably the greatest American play. And seeing him do it was startling, because he was so good. He was so good.
Oscars coming up soon. Once upon a time, you used to, for New York,
very soon.
Once upon a time, you used to write the greatest Oscars prediction column in the history of Oscars prediction columns for New York Magazine.
I used to write. I don't write about the Oscars anymore.
I know. Well, give us your picks then. What do you have for Best Picture? What do you think should win, and what do you think will win?
I didn't think this was a stunning year, but I thought there were a lot of good pictures. No, I just thought there were. I mean, I'm looking at a list now of the Best Pictures, and I've seen all of them, I think.
Yeah.
And they're all quality flicks. I mean, I'm reading them off alphabetically. American Hustle, with Amy Adams, who I'm madly in love with, Captain Phillips, Tom Hanks, Dallas Buyers Club, Gravity, Her, Nebraska, Philomena, 12 Years a Slave, Wolf of Wall Street. Those are swell movies. There's nothing that jumps out at me as being startling. I guess maybe because it was so different, Gravity. But Dallas Buyers Club was really a terrific flick. They were these were all swell movies. It's like I'm looking at the best performances by a woman: Amy Adams, Kate Blanchett, Sandra Bullock, Judi Dench, Meryl Streep. I mean, those are wonderful actors. So, I mean, there's not going to be any bad decisions. Like on Best Actor, the kid in 12 Years a Slave is probably the leader because the Academy likes to think it's liberal and its color is black.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know. The thing I find that most people don't know is that I believe this to be true. I think the Academy takes the Oscars seriously. It's not a bunch of idiots running around saying, who's the cutest, who's this, who's that. I think basically they like those movies that are up there. Because in a crazy sense, it's their life. You know, none of the movies that are up this year they're all quality flicks, you know.
They're all, wouldn't you say they're all in that A- to B+ range, but
yes,
there's no great one?
There's nothing staggering this year.
But it was a really deep year. It was like one of those
really
NBA draft classes with really 9 All-Stars.
It really is a deep year, and it's like, and it's unusual. I mean, I'm looking up Best Actresses now, okay? Amy Adams, American Hustle, Kate Blanchett, Blue Jasmine, Sandra Bullock, Gravity, Judi Dench, Philomena, Meryl Streep, August, Orange County. Those are all, any one of those that wins, it's fine.
Right.
I mean,
I would argue, I would say it's between Bullock, Amy Adams, and who was the second one?
Kate Blanchett.
Yeah, Kate Blanchett's probably going to win.
Well, she may, you know. It's like, I don't know. It's really weird what's out there this year because I don't know. I pay great attention to it. Whenever I get the envelope, I vote within 2 minutes.
Really? You did the quickie vote?
I do a quickie thing. I want to go with what I think is best, and I want to get it out of my house as fast as I can.
What was your favorite performance? Removing all of your romantic attachments aside with Amy Adams.
Well, I thought Sandra Bullock was wonderful in Gravity. I thought it was just a marvelous. And it's like, I just thought she was swell. You know, it's not just that it's a hard part, because she's in that fucking thing for 120 minutes.
Right.
That balloon, whatever it is. But she has really become a terrific star, Sandra Bullock. And, you know, and someone's got to be smart, and it's her, because she picks good stuff. And, I mean, Gravity, which I think probably, I'm going to guess Gravity right now is the favorite of the things that are up. I'll bet you nobody wanted to make Gravity. You know,
no way.
It's not like a Bang Bang picture. And it was very hard to make, and I assume it was hard to get made. But it just, when I saw it, I thought, holy shit, what a terrific flick.
Where do you stand on these David O. Russell movies? Because they always have incredible performances. They have these really, really rich, colorful scenes that you remember, that are shot beautifully, that are
well, like which one this year?
Well, American Hustle. But then
I think
the overall movie is kind of incoherent to some degree. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think he's a terrific director, David. You know, he does really good movies, and I'm a fan. I like The Fighter. I hate Huckabees. I heard Huckabees. You know, he does really quality stuff.
Silver Linings Playbook?
Yeah. No. He's one of those guys who I think basically is very gifted. He's a very gifted young fellow.
It does seem like it's a new form of, well, I guess like maybe Robert Altman, people like that. It's of that kind of genre, but the kind of scripts that you wrote were very cut and dry scripts with a certain structure. His seem like they're almost like, I know they're not ad-libbing the scenes, but it almost gives you that feeling like he's just unleashing the actors on these weird parts.
Yeah, no. He's very gifted. Listen, here's the thing that nobody has to realize. It's fucking hard being a director.
Yeah.
Because nobody wants to do your movie. You've got to you've got to deal with the studio. And the studio, the thing about the studio guys is they're all smart, but they all know if they make The Lone Ranger, they're going to get fired. Because The Lone Ranger lost, I guess, $150 million this year.
Right.
And they thought it was going to be a gigantic hit. I wrote a line once that caught on out there, which is true. Nobody knows anything. None of us have the least idea what's going to work. And so it's always a crapshoot. It's always a crapshoot. It's why stars have flop movies. It's why directors have flop movies. We all do. I mean, even Steven Spielberg has flop movies, and George Lucas, and we like to think they're just amazing, and they're having remarkable careers. But who knows? They don't know. I mean,
if you could only protect one person for the next 10 years, would you protect Jennifer Lawrence or Kevin Durant?
I think Kevin Durant. I think I would try.
Interesting. You're keeping Kevin Durant. You're getting rid of Jennifer Lawrence.
Well, I'm not getting rid of her. If it was the choice of two, she's only 23, I think. And she's a very talented kid. We don't know. See, one of the things about these people, in the world they live in out there, I don't like Los Angeles. I'm a terrible driver.
Yeah.
And I'll tell my favorite awful Hollywood story. I'm out there for the first time. It's like 50 years ago. And I'm walking with a hotshot young producer. And he says, we're going to a restaurant for lunch. And he says the following quote, "Shit, here comes Alfred Hitchcock. Let's cross the street so I don't have to say hello to him." And we cross the street. Now, you got to understand, Hitchcock, who I'd never met, obviously, was a hero of mine. And I thought that was the stupidest fucking thing I'd ever heard of. And then I began noodling around, and the thing was, it made sense. Because Hitchcock was no longer, at that stage of his career, the superstar director he had been commercially. And the young producer wanted to be a superstar producer. And he was terrified somebody would see him with Hitchcock and say, "Oh my God, is he so desperate he's working with him?" And that's the way they are out there. It's a very strange thing. They want their careers to continue. And they don't. Nobody's done. It's a very weird world because it's all a crapshoot. I mean, whatever movies are coming out in 3 months from now, I have no idea what they are. Every executive at every studio thinks, "Oh my God, I think this is going to be it." And it's going to flop. And if enough things flop, the studio's going to fire him because the rich guys who own the studios want to be surrounded with people who bring them hits. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's a movie I'm desperate to see that's opening this week. George Clooney wrote it, and I guess it's called Monuments Men.
I'm worried about that one.
Well, I am too. I hope it's wonderful. I don't know anybody who's seen it, and I'm going to see it regardless. But I think it's a fabulous idea for a movie, and I hope it works. But nobody has the least idea right now. Is it going to open?
They didn't screen it for anyone, and they dumped it in February. 2 red flags.
Yeah, you're right. And if it's
major
a hit,
red flags.
If it's a hit, everyone will say, "Well, we wanted to keep it special." I don't know. I live in New York, and I've been in the movie business since 1963, I think.
Yeah.
And it's just the same. I mean, it's like, I've only met 2 stars in all these years that I had nothing but wonderful thoughts about. One of them was Paul Newman, no longer with us, and the other one is Clint Eastwood. And they were totally professional, no ego, very gifted writers and directors and actors. And but a lot of them are not. You don't want to meet a lot of the Hollywood stars.
I'm glad you brought up Newman because somebody sent me this question for my mailbag, and I thought it was awesome. I'm going to tweak it a little bit.
Go.
Hollywood comes to you, and they say, "Look, we are remaking Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid," which you wrote, and you won the Oscar for. We're doing this, and we're cutting you a check for $100 million, and the only thing we're asking from you is this. Which 2 actors are we casting? And you have to tell them which 2 actors they're casting. The movie's happening anyway. You can't stop it.
Who are they?
I don't know. Who are your 2 actors? Who plays Butch and who plays Sundance? I think I actually do know, but I was interested to see if you'd have the same answer.
Who are they?
I think it's Clooney and Pitt.
Okay, they'll be good.
But I don't know. I think Clooney's Butch.
Yeah, you'd have.
And I think Pitt's Sundance.
Yeah, that's good. You know, it's one of those things where we're making Butch Cassidy, and the wonderful late George Roy Hill is the director, and we became friendly, and we both liked the movie, and it got fucking killed by the critics.
It
the
did?
most vicious reviews I ever got in my life.
Really?
Oh yeah, and one of the reasons was, I don't know if I want you to use this, I got paid $400,000 for the screenplay, that is still a lot of money.
No, people know that. That was the most anybody had ever gotten for a screenplay.
But at that time, it was a phenomenal record-breaking sum. And the critics all wrote these shitty things about it, saying, why would Hollywood be so stupid as to pay that kind of money for a script when we all know the actors make up all the good lines and the directors have all the visual concepts, which is what they really thought in those years. And this anger continued, and the reviews were just terrible. And George Hill and I were walking the day it opened, and we were in despair because we both liked the movie. We didn't think it was the Brothers Karamazov, but we both really liked it. And it was playing in 2 theaters in New York, on the east side and the west side. And we happened to stop by the one on the east side, and George said, let's go in and talk to the manager. So we did, and George said, the manager came out and said, hello, and George said to him, why are you smiling? And the manager of the theater said, because we're selling out every production, every showing, and the audience loves it. And we were stunned. And George managed to say, do you know how it's doing on Broadway? And the guy said, I'll call up the manager over there. So he comes back in a few minutes and said, same deal. Selling out every performance, and the audience loves it. And we thanked him and walked into the night, George and I, and we came to our apartments. And as we separated, George said, maybe it isn't a disaster after all. And I've always thought that was one of the great lines because nobody knows.
Right.
I mean, I just love that. This is George Roy Hill was, and they're so different, those people out there. And if they're New Yorkers and they live out there, their life becomes so strange. And I'll tell my Steve McQueen story. It's a great story. I was out there, and he wanted to meet with me, so on the way to the airport, I had the driver stop, and I had my meeting with McQueen, who was lovely. And I left and said goodbye, and I got back in the car, and suddenly, he was the biggest star in the world at this point. Suddenly, he comes running out of his office screaming, wait. And I told the driver to wait. And McQueen came running up and he said, how am I going to find you in New York? And I said, I'm in the phone book. And I can still see him, a staggering surprise on his face. And he literally fell backwards away and almost fell down. Because I suddenly realized Steve McQueen had probably been 10 years before he had met anybody since it was in the phone book. Because stars are not in the phone book.
Right.
And, big deal people. And if you're Steve McQueen, you only want to associate with other big deal people.
Yeah.
But that's one of my favorite Hollywood stories. How will I find you? My God. I mean, it's a weird life they lead, and it affects the quality of what they choose to make. And
well,
go on.
I was going to say, by the way, I'm keeping you way past your allotted time. We're still going because we haven't talked about the Knicks yet. What's interesting about your career, because you did all these great things, you won a couple Oscars, you made a lot of money, you become the dean of screenwriters for all the future ones, all that stuff.
Bullshit. Go get to the point.
Princess Bride in a weird way, has become your generational legacy. Because at some point when little kids, they hit some age between, for my daughter, I think it was 6. For my son, it was 4, just because he does everything she does. But every kid watches that movie, and now it's like between DVDs, Blu-rays, Apple TV, Netflix, whatever. If you make anything that's one of the best of those kids' movies, they're all going to see it. So I would say more people have seen Princess Bride in the last 8 years than have probably seen it in the 25, 30 years, whatever, before it.
I think you're right. It's a wonderful thing. I love the fact that kids like it. It was not... my kids were little, I want to say 8 and 5. And I said, I'll write you a story. What do you want it to be about? And one of the princesses and the other one said brides. And I said, that'll be the title. And I wrote a couple of pages, and then I got stuck. And then a couple of months later, I went back, and it opened itself to me, and I wrote it very quickly. And it's the only thing I've ever written that I really can look at without barfing. It's the thing I've written I'm most proud of, et cetera, et cetera. And I love the fact that kids like it. I just, who knew? It was nothing when it came out. It was this, and the movie now is a famous movie. But it was not a Spielberg picture. And quick Spielberg story, who I do not know. Movie that he directed, which is the biggest hit, most important film he was Jaws, and which Jaws changed the way movies are in the summertime and all kinds of things. And it was a famous disaster while they were shooting it.
Yep.
It was just a legendary piece of shit. The boat wouldn't work, and the water was terrible, blah, blah, blah. And when I went to see it, it was a first screening, and I thought it was sensational. And it was funny because the thing about Jaws was it wasn't just a phenomenal hit, and it didn't change whatever came out in the summertime. It shocked everybody because, to quote Bill Goldman, nobody knows anything.
With Princess Bride, you said Robin Wright, at that particular point in her life, was the most beautiful woman who ever lived. Do you still stand by that?
Oh, not even close. I was out there with Rob Reiner, who did so brilliantly directing it, and we were trying to cast a Buttercup. And these, I live in New York, and girls who look like these girls, and these breathtaking women came in to read for it, and they were all gorgeous, but they weren't what we were looking for. And I came back to New York, and Rob called me a couple weeks later and said, you got to look at this girl. And Robin came over to my house, her apartment, and I think she was there for 10 seconds when I called him and said, grab her. Because she was at that time, I still think, she's not a dog now.
No.
But Robin in those years was so beautiful. So she was a breathtakingly beautiful young girl.
And you think she would have been one of the biggest actresses of all time if she didn't decide to raise a family? And if she wanted to be famous?
Yeah, I don't think she did. I don't think Robin had... Look, to be a movie star, you got to want it more than anything. And if you don't want it more than anything, it's not necessarily a great life. I mean, they make a lot of money, but you know what I mean. I don't think she gave a shit. It's one of those... I never asked her, but I don't think she did.
We're spinning it to the Knicks.
Say that again?
We're spinning it to the Knicks.
Okay.
So,
and then I'm done, right?
Then you're done. Because
okay.
You're already like 8 minutes past what I promised. But
okay.
This was going really good. This is one of the best BS reports in a while.
Good.
So the Knicks, I can't even describe how traumatized you are. You really just have to get the random phone calls from you and the random emails from you every once in a while for people to fully understand. You just can't believe it. You just can't believe that this isn't getting better and that you have to watch this unwatchable team and these players that you don't really like, and there's no real way out. I mean, how are you handling the season?
Well, it's very hard. I mean, it's just very hard. I've been going since '68. I became a dear friend of my beloved Dave DeBusschere, now dead, and I followed that early that very, very, very great team with DeBusschere and Bradley and Willis and all those people, Frazier, Monroe. Never been a team like that.
Nope.
And I've I stayed with the Knicks pretty much all those years, and I always will. And I've got wonderful seats at the Garden, and I like going there. I like to get there early. I love to be in my seat like a half an hour before game time and watch the Garden fill up and watch the kids come out and practice. And then the game starts, and Carmelo shoots all the time. He's a great shooter. But if he passed a little more, would that kill him? I don't know.
It might. It might actually kill him.
I don't know. It's just we may make 8th place this year. It's tricky because the owner, Mr. Dolan, who is richer than we are, said at the beginning he wanted a championship team this year. And everybody's terrified he's going to fire the coach who we all like. And he may, but it's his right. He owns it. And it's just tricky because it's very good, Bill. What can I tell you?
And there's not a lot of outs. There's not a lot of draft picks. There's not draft picks to trade. There's not cap space for at least one more year. I mean, if I was running the Knicks, you have all these big guys coming up after 2015. You got Kevin Love and Durant and Westbrook.
Oh, please.
My goal would be to not tie up my cap to have a chance at these. Unfortunately, this was the strategy in 2010. And it led you, instead of LeBron and Wade and all these possibilities, to Amare Stoudemire.
One of the things you've got to realize about the Knicks, this year, we're halfway through the season. This year, we have absolutely, without bullshitting or faking, sold out every seat.
Yep.
It's an absolute sellout every damn game, which, they usually fake it, but this is real. And there was a thing in the paper that Knicks are the most valuable franchise in pro basketball. I think they're worth $1.4 billion. Well, Dolan's got to be pretty happy with that.
Yeah.
I don't know if he cares so much. I mean, that's what he's a businessman. That's what they care about, isn't it?
You'd think. I mean, he took over in 2001, and you've won one playoff series since. That's trouble.
God, leave me alone.
That's trouble.
I love it. I love it. But I can't imagine what it's like being a fan of Miami's now. They came to town the other day. You're looking at those teams. I don't know how long Wade's going to be good for or great for, but LeBron's just, I've seen 3 great players in my life, Wilt and Michael and LeBron. They are the 3 greatest players I've ever seen, and they don't happen often. It's like in tennis when Roger Federer came along. You had to think, oh, my God, please don't let him get hurt. Because those years when 10 years ago, Federer was as great as any tennis player who ever lived. And these kids, these talents that happen so rarely, are what give us pleasure, I think.
Well, I've been thinking a lot about the pyramid if I ever do another version of my book. And
I wish you would. I'd buy several like I did the last one.
Well, you were in the last one. I think LeBron has passed Wilt. I think he is now number 6. And he's knocking on the door of Bird and Magic. And what's crazy is this is his 11th season. Bird really only had 10 seasons. Actually, he had 9. He got hurt, played another one, and then 2, he was out. Magic was 12, got HIV, he was out. LeBron has almost had a career that is as long as those guys, which seems bizarre to think that, but it's a fact. He's 4 MVPs. He's won 2 titles. He's statistically is better than those guys. He was a better two-way player than those guys.
Yeah, but it's
pretty close.
One of the things about LeBron that's amazing when you see him is he can do everything. He can run, he can rebound, he can pass. He could score 35 points a game. I think if he wanted to, instead of 25. I think he's just very, very great and thrilling to watch.
I think you've lost your luster for Bird a little bit. You were the guy who wrote in one of my favorite sports books ever, Wait Till Next Year, with Lupica. You wrote a whole chapter about how great Bird was and how people were going to forget this someday because that's what people do with old athletes.
Yes.
And now you're doing it with Bird. So
well, not really. Yeah, maybe. But if we were sitting having drinks, I would start to remember. He was very great.
Well, if you were making your list of during the 47 years or whatever that you've had Knicks tickets, the can't miss guys passing through town that you just like, what? Oh no, I can't do anything that night because he's coming. It would be a short list and Bird would be on it.
That is correct. Bird is one of the. Yeah,
Magic,
I love
Magic, Jordan, Wilt. Who else is on the list? LeBron. Is Durant on that list yet?
Well, I love Durant. I don't know if he wants. He's one of the 10 greatest that ever lived.
Wow, you're giving him 10 greatest?
Don't you think he is?
I think he can. No,
so who are we talking about?
Durant.
Yeah, I think Durant's one of the greatest players I've ever seen.
Yeah, I need to see it for 10 years.
Well,
I can't think about it till year 10.
Okay.
I think what he's doing this year, he's putting together one of the greatest offensive seasons
he is.
ever of all time. He's 31 a game, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 50, 40, 90 percentages. It's ridiculous.
I know, he's very great.
I'm giving him my MVP vote.
Yeah.
Unless LeBron gets mad and decides to flip the narrative. Well, listen, you weren't nearly as traumatized sounding about the Knicks as you are in phone call. I think you held back. I don't think you wanted to cause waves.
Are we done now?
Yeah, we're done. That was 43 minutes. That was unbelievable.
All right.
See, your time is valuable.
All right. You're not going to make a recording of this, are you?
Yeah. We might make a recording and play it. William Goldman, one of my favorite writers ever, my friend, a great advice giver over the years. Great to have you on the BS Report. We will have lunch soon.
My pleasure. If you could send me a copy, I'd love it.
I would absolutely do that. Thank you.
So I get to sign off. Whoa!
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at Podcenter at ESPNradio.com.
Peace out.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.